All right. Hi, everyone. It's Linus. I was going to do this in my studio, but my studio is kind of apart. As you can see, I've sort of rearranged my office a little bit. I used to have everything against that wall that you kind of see back there, which is where my gaming system is. But my overhead light cable doesn't go far enough, so I have to actually finish with the cables and stuff. So anyways, the topic I'm going to talk about, I'm going to do most of it with this, but I'll post another video later on about a couple of pieces that are better shown than just talked about. I'll briefly talk about them, but I'll also demo some things for that. So what am I going to talk about? Well, what it means to be an instructor, right? Education that exists out there around teachers and stuff like that tends to be geared towards K-12 or college or professors. And there's very little studies or information about corporate training, right? Corporate training is its own sort of thing, if you will. It is slightly different because it's a compressed time, right? Courses are a day long, 2 days long, maybe a week long, and they'll run, say, 9 to 5, or maybe they're compressed. Maybe they're multiple courses together, so they'll run 8 to 6, or maybe the worst one, which are boot camps, they tend to run 7 to 7. I won't go into necessarily the statistics around that type of stuff. There have been very few studies, but there have been a few studies done. And generally speaking, when you try to squish things into into a more compressed time, people don't learn as much as they, they're trying to do it because they're trying to save money and they're trying to do a certification, all of that type of stuff. But that all said, right, the thing I want to talk about is something that I used to always talk about when we did our instructor certification workshops at VMware. We still have some of the best instructors in the world for corporate training. And largely it was because of the ICWs, or instructor certification workshops. These were week-long events where we graded people or candidates on their technical skills and their soft skills. Now, technical skills are stuff that you can easily pick up. That comes with time and more exposure to a particular product, right? In this case, we're talking about technology specifically. But the soft skills can be a little more trickier. And that's actually what I'm going to focus on for this video, and some of the things that a good corporate trainer, corporate instructor, needs to be aware of when they're teaching, right? So, and my apologies, the animals are up here with me, so you might hear some meows and barks in the background. I'll try and minimize that as much as possible. The first thing to start off with is what I call clear communications, or setting the expectation, right? When you come into a class, say you have 12 students, they're there for training for the week. And as part of that, you need to set the expectation of what they're going to get for the week itself. Part of that is to find out what they want. What is it that they're hoping to get out of this, right? Are they hoping to learn some new little trick? Are they hoping to do their certification? Is it the first time they've ever been exposed to the product, right? So part of that is setting that expectation. As part of that expectation is what we call class management, right? So explaining what the timing is going to be like. So 9 to 5, we're going to take a break. At this time, we'll take a break in the afternoon. There's an hour lunch. We expect to finish roughly at this time on, whatever the last day is. And when I used to do this, what I would often say is, I expect to be done around this time, barring any major catastrophes. But I'll have a better idea by either Wednesday or Thursday, right? So setting those expectations up front as part of it. Now, as much as I say that you can learn your technology, it's really important to know the core of what the course is. And my biggest pet peeve is something I'm about to show you right now, and it's this effect. We are going to talk about ESX. It is a hypervisor. It does wonderful things. It can virtualize your memory, or make your memory software. It extracts out the memory layer, extracts out the CPU layer, extracts the hardware. Now, what I'm showing you is something that I often used to see a lot of, which is what I call slide reading, and it drives me insane. Most students, when they come to a class, will get collateral from the class, right? And that's usually in the form of, say, a PDF or some other ebook version of the slides themselves. If an instructor is standing there reading the slides and you're seeing the back of their head for the whole time, and when someone does this, they usually do it in this voice, where it's very monotone and not that exciting, and it's really, oh, right. People will fall asleep, and it's even worse online. It's really, really important. Modulate your voice, be excited, right? Part of why they're here is because they want to learn. They may be told to go to the class to learn because their manager said, you must take this training. Okay, fine. But for the most part, most people want to actually learn something, and you have to make it exciting for them. You're combating social media. You're combating, actually, it's not social media or Amazon or anything like that you're combating. You're combating their day-to-day job. While they're in the class, even though they're supposed to be focused on you, it's likely that there's fires going on for their job elsewhere. And you're fighting that. So it's really important. Be engaging, get them involved. And there's a few tricks I'll talk about that can help with that. One of the big tricks is telling a story, right? Your slides, whatever it is that you're using, is basically a story from start to finish. And the modules or segments are the chapters. And so you have to have the flow of how you tell that story. When we talked about virtualization, it was a fairly easy story to tell, right? Hey, you had lots of hardware. Now you can actually reduce that hardware, have fewer machines. Here's how it works, right? Here's how you can make it continue to work and work well, right? That was a fairly easy story to tell. And we did it more around the product than the role. We were trying to change it to the role later on, but regardless of whether it's a role-based training or a product-based training or whatever based training, you're telling a story. So make it exciting for them. Make them, sort of wonder, whoa, this is something really neat, right? A lot of people that came to our classes, when we told it as a story, often said this was the best training they've ever had in 30 years, right? And that's an indication of we knew that we were on the right track for this type of thing. Now, one of the other things you have to watch is time management. I'm really bad at this sometimes. My videos are a testament to that. I always try to get them to 10 minutes, and I can see right now I'm already at 7, and it's probably a bit too long, but that's okay, right? And that's one of the things, right? As instructors, we talk a lot. We have to really be careful about how much we talk. And we need to make sure that we keep an eye on our timing, right? So generally speaking, most classes will have a timing guide of some sort, and it gives you a rough idea of what to follow as far as how much you should do within the first day, second day, and so on, kind of thing. But things happen, and you have to adjust accordingly. I've had classes where the labs completely died because a plane crashed in Palo Alto, and it hit a transformer, and it blew the power for the whole city. Those things happen. So how do you deal with that? Well, my trick was, I said, I would tell the students straight out, this is what's happened. They're working really hard to get the labs up. In the meantime, we're going to front load all the lecture. And when we get the labs back, we'll do a whack of labs, speed run or something, kind of thing. And that's one of the ways that you can sort of get around stuff like that, right? So those types of things. Now, if time does become a real crunch because of other things, you can do things like put labs in with lunch. So do a working lunch kind of thing, or shorten the lunches, right? Lunches are usually an hour, shorten them down to maybe 45 minutes, half an hour. Most people find that an hour lunch is a little bit too long anyways. So you can take advantage of those types of things. One of the things I wanted to show was the right tool. That's the important thing. It's actually knowing your tools, and particularly for online, what are some of the tools you can use, and even some neat things. Because my studio's not ready, I can't show it. So I'll record a separate video showing some of the tools that we've used. Tablets are a great thing. You can use them to do whiteboarding. Both Zoom and WebEx, which are the main sort of online conferencing type tools that people use, have some whiteboarding functionality, but they're kind of clunky at times. And unless you're really, you have maybe a Wacom or similar tablet, they can be a little tricky. So we often use iPads or Android tablets that had, just basically a white page on it and just drew on that. And I'll show you some of the tools that I use for that kind of thing. And plus a neat little thing that I got for my office. I haven't had a chance really to use it as much, but I'm hoping to use it more. My whiteboard, or lightboard rather. Now, the big thing with being an instructor is shit happens, right? Let's be blunt about it, right? Things will happen. You have to be able to adapt and not let it derail you, right? So, address the issue, and then come back to students to say, this is what the situation is. Let's try and power through. I've had situations where I've had really bad personal events happen, called to get another instructor, continued teaching, and then when the other instructor came in, I was able to give the class over to them. I gave them 5 minutes sort of breakdown as where we were, what had happened, things to watch for, and that type of thing. So, be flexible, be adaptable to whatever goes on in the region or whatever goes on in your class, right? And with that, that means being present. And that can be hard when things happen, right? Like if you all of a sudden you get sick, you get food poisoning or something like that. You have to sort of, just be honest with the students, tell them what happened. And most people will be pretty much, okay, no problem, and let them know. Right. Now, with being present, it means being engaging, right? That's sort of what I alluded to at the very beginning, which is, get them involved, right? Part of a class is not just you standing there being a talking head, right? I mean, there's a lot of instructors who like to hear their voice, but we want to hear the students' voices. Now, one of the things, this is, and I fall into this sometimes, usually when I'm really tired, one of the things that often a lot of instructors will do is ask this horrible question, which is, does anyone have any questions? And that response that you're hearing right now, which is nothing, is generally the response. No one wants to put their hand up. No one wants to be the one that does that. So there are a few tricks around this. One of my favorite ones is, has anyone ever experienced this thing, right? So one example I use is, has anyone ever had it where the snapshot was left on a virtual machine and the virtual machine performance went down? And you will hear the war stories, right? They will come out. People love to talk about the war stories, right? Now you have to be careful with this because once the war stories get going, sometimes it can be hard to shut them down. So it's important to keep an eye on them and make sure they don't get too far out of track. Another technique you can do is a bit of gamification in the class, and that's through mini quizzes, right? So as part of what I said earlier, know your topic. If you know your topic, you can create some questions and use something like Kahoot and maybe even the music from Jeopardy to gamify it, right? So students can use their computer or they can use their phone. They see the questions, they can answer them, and they can see who's first, who's second, and so on, kind of thing. And it's actually a lot of fun. My colleague Joe used this a lot of times, particularly when we did conferences, and it was a huge hit. People love this stuff, right? So you can use it in the class. It's free or actually really low cost, even if you pay for their packages. Now, as much as you want to know everything, the reality is you're not going to know everything about all the topics that you cover. And that's why it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. This is where a parking lot comes in handy. Now, a parking lot is a place that you can put, questions asked that you don't have the answer for. And you can say to them, look, I will follow up with you tomorrow morning, or I will research it and see if I can get you an answer by the end of the week, right? Whatever that time is, make sure that you meet that. And if you can't, for whatever reason, maybe, you've reached out to somebody and they aren't responding right away, or whatever the case may be, let the student know. And if need be, get their email address and follow up with them afterwards, or get all the students' email addresses and follow up with everybody afterwards. That way, A, you learn something, but B, it shows that you are actually cognizant of their time and you show that they're important, right? And last but not least is practice, practice, practice. Nothing beats, your ability to teach more than doing it over and over again. It can be monotonous to do the same class over and over again, but then you get to know the class really well. And that means that you can be a better instructor. Part of the reason why I did so well during my time at VMware is because there was actually one main product that I actually taught most of the time, which was Horizon and Horizon Cloud. And I knew it inside out, right? I still learned something new in every class, but practice makes perfect. If you want to practice your speaking skills, the best place to go to is Toastmasters. They're relatively cheap. They're international. They're everywhere in the world. It's a great way to practice public speaking. So if you're not familiar with them, go check out toastmasters.org, and you can probably find a local Toastmasters or an online Toastmasters to help you. So this isn't the be end, be all end all type of thing for instructors. There's still a lot more, but hopefully this gives you a taste of what it takes to be a great instructor. So with that, I'll leave you with this, and we'll see you next time.